Welcome to Soul Loom, a space where the threads of lived experience, energy, and insight are gently woven into the path of remembering, reconnection, and becoming. In my last episode with Jane Hardwick Collins, we explored menopause as an initiation, a rite of passage that calls us to embody our wisdom. Today, I'm joined by astrologer Georgina Sierra to look at what's happening in the sky during these midlife years, from our Chiron return to our Saturn's oppositions, from the goddess asteroids to the deeper invitations that guide us from nurturer to matriarch. Georgina is an intuitive evolutionary astrologer, and after graduating from the Sydney Astrology School, she obtained an internationally recognised diploma in astrology as well as a qualification in consulting skills from OPA, the Organisation of Professional Astrology. She's a member of the Federation of Australian Astrologers, the Sydney Astrological Research Society, and the International Society for Astrological Research. And Georgina is also the recipient of the 2023 OPA Mentorship Program. Georgina also holds a Master in Science degree. So before finding her life purpose, she also worked as a research scientist in chemistry. Georgina, welcome to Soul Loom.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me. This is amazing.
My goodness. And Georgina and I have known each other for quite a while because we both studied astrology under Mark Lawrence from the Sydney Astrology School.
Yeah.
So we have been playing in this space together for a number of years. So Georgina, you have a science background. So I'm assuming that you left school, as we all did, and you went to uni and you studied a Bachelor of Science. How did you then pivot from being a scientist, which is kind of the total opposite to astrology, and move into this space of being an evolutionary astrologer and doing readings for people?
Oh, it'll take a whole hour to explain. It's quite interesting because I've been following astrology since I was 11, pretty much, but went into science because I love science. And I remember getting a soul reading, and I was being told that in a past life I was a scientist, but the person that I was working with was a scientist and very woo-woo, but I was like, nope, don't want to hear a bar of it. And I've come back in this lifetime being like that person and they're a spirit guide. And I was like, yeah, right, as if. But it came to my midlife where I was going through the motions. I was, working in science. I was pretty bored, to be honest, in what I was doing, even though I love chemistry. But, and then it was around my nodal return, around that time, about 38 years old. My father passed away. Everything went to shit. Sorry, excuse my language, but it did.
No, that's fine. I haven't got a problem with that.
Yeah. And, it felt like for me at the time, and I say that to a lot of people, it was like between these two mountains that of black onyx that were slippery that you cannot climb out of. And I was in quicksand and I couldn't get out of it with some circumstances that happened. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to go with the flow. The career ferret fell away. Once that fell away, my personal life went up. And it was about 6 months after I gave birth to my first child. Like I knew, astrologically things were happening, but I didn't know enough. I mean, during, working in science would be, in the cafeteria where I'd be working in a government organization. They're like, oh, Georgina, tell me about the stars and everything. I knew, about sun signs. I remember one guy coming up to me saying, I'm an Aries and my wife's a Pisces. Do you think it's going to work? And I'm like, well, you can't see each other, that's for sure. But, it depends on the rest of the charts and the charts.
Yeah, I need a little bit more info than that.
Right. And, it doesn't work that way. And I would go onto the Federation of Australian Astrologers website and see the exam papers and having a scientific brain going, how on earth do they find this stuff from the charts? I had no idea. So fast forwarding back once my son was 6 months old, I was like, you know what, I'm going to study astrology. I wasn't working. My husband was working. We're on one income. I needed something for myself. And I knew something was happening astrologically, but I had no idea. So, yeah, I remember going online, finding Sydney Astrology School, getting in touch with Mark. And he said, as it would have it, the early bird's finished, but my level 1 class starts tomorrow. And the rest is history, and I signed up. And it wasn't until I studied transits, I was in the middle of my midlife transits. And I'm like, Oh, that's why everything's changed, everything's fallen away. And from there, and I have a moon in Capricorn, so I like to get my qualifications. I like to do things properly and start what I finish. And so I just kept studying, and I'm still studying, even as you know, as working as a professional astrologer. You never stop learning. So that's
Mm.
how I got into it. It didn't take an hour.
No, but it's so interesting, and I found the same thing. I think I decided to get into astrology after I had my natal chart reading with you because
Yeah.
I was already and as my listeners know, or if you've read my book, like I've been in this spiritual space ever since I was a teenager. And
Yeah.
then I had a reading with yourself, and we were talking about how I could move more into this space and work with people. And I think we were talking about maybe I should do astrology. And I then basically jumped online to Sydney Astrology School and similar thing, like
Yeah.
here's level one starting, and I just jumped straight in and did it. And you don't realize how accurate, how scarily accurate
Yes.
it is until you have somebody produce your natal chart and go through it with you. And even if they don't go through it to the nth degree, even just understanding your sun, your moon, your rising, and the major personal and outer planets
Yeah.
can make you step back and go, oh, that explains why I do this, or I think that way, or I have that belief system. And as I said um in the last episode with Jane, and I've said in a lot of my podcasts, it's the energy's there whether you like it or not, whether you
That's
believe it or
right.
not. The energy is
Yes.
there, and you're much better off to learn about it and
Mm.
understand how to move with it than to continually be forcing yourself against it, because it's going to be there whether you like it or not. And it's a free resource. We don't have to pay for this energy that's out there. We just have to understand it and learn how to work with it. And
Exactly.
it doesn't cost us anything once we understand it. It's there for us to tap into.
Absolutely. And there's no such thing as a bad chart, right? There could
No,
be challenging aspects, but that's what you've incarnated to learn and to
that's
work
right.
with. And when you work with it, you flourish in this lifetime. You do what you're here, what you were meant to do. And
Mm,
things
mm,
flowed from there. And you'll find that, midlife, and then you look back to when you're a teenager in your 20s, you will not recognize yourself. You're like,
mm,
if you only knew, if I could go back in time and go, oh, if you only knew, it gets better. But you go through these things and it's all in your charts. And even
mm,
when I analyze a client's chart before a session, I can see it's like, what's happened in your relationship or something like that. And that's the first thing I will ask them. And then the verbal waterfall comes out of
mm,
everything. And they're like, how did you know? And it's like, well, it's right there. It's happening right now. And these are the challenges that, and how we can work through it or what have you. So, yeah, it's a
mm,
free resource. We're born with it. We incarnate with it, but it's just hidden away in the stars. And as astrologers, it's not a religion. It's not a belief or anything like that. It's just a language. We're just interpreting things for
mm. And it's just
everyone.
another tool that we use to support
Yeah.
our clients going through what they're going through.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just another tool. It's no different to if you go to a tarot reader or you go to a psychic medium. It's just our tool that we use. And I
That's
think
right.
too, in my experience, and I know you're the same as me, so many astrologers, and I know Mark that runs the Sydney Astrologer School, he is incredibly intuitive.
Oh, yeah.
Our intuition allows us to see into that chart, which I think often when people go, how did you know? It's like, well, intuitively, I'm already getting your situation
Yes,
and
exactly.
kind of what your guides are wanting me to help you with. So,
Yeah,
you kind of get a double whammy in that you get what's in the chart, which is what it is, but then you get the intuitive information
exactly.
that we're receiving for you as well.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it's just fascinating.
love it.
So what we're going to look at today is we're looking at those midlife years because they're the people that I primarily work with, the midlife women, and you'll probably find yourself because that's your lived
Yes.
experience that they're primarily your client base. So what we're going to have a look at is astrologically those years between 40 and 60, which is for most of us when the perimenopause journey begins, and then we sort of cycle through that for the next 20 or so years. What are some of the major trances that are occurring and those energetic turning points that most people are experiencing that might help us explain why you're going through what you're going through for your midlife experience?
There's quite a few that are happening. So I would say it would start before you're 40 at about 38. So when we're 38, we go through something called a nodal return. And the nodes, they're not an actual planet, luminary, or anything. It's just a position of the moon. And it's our karma. So we have something called the south node. They look like horseshoes. So the south node is, the upside down horseshoe. And that's sort of what we've agreed to come in from a particular past life or lesson to learn. It's our comfort zone. It's the things that we're used to, we're comfortable. And sometimes what we're suffering, we're actually comfortable with certain suffering with that. The north node is where we're pushed outside of our comfort zone, how we overcome these challenges, how we overcome these lessons, and we never stop learning. Once we think we've learned something, there's another layer that comes along. So when we're 38, we see it when we're 18, and it comes again around at 38, and it comes around every 18 to 19 years. So we start seeing those karmic lessons coming into our lives around 38. That's just like the first sign of what's happening. And then depending on where you have Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, depending on your generation and what year you were born in, you will have a Pluto square Pluto transit. So it's 90 degrees to each other. So where Pluto was when you were born to where it's progressed or moved since you were born, it makes a 90-degree angle. So that's the first one. That's a transformational one. The Neptune square Neptune, same traveling. That's more of seeing through things and seeing for things what they truly are in life. So that follows straight after. And then you have the Uranus opposite Uranus transit. So they're exactly 180 degrees opposite each other, where Uranus was when you were born to where it is where you are in midlife. And that one is like sort of the final sign off. It's a very buzzing electrical energy. So like if there's something that you wanted to direct your life towards, you pretty much kicked up the butt to go in that direction. They're the major ones that are happening. And they can go from about 40 to 44, 45. But it depends when you were born, because Pluto does not have a circular orbit. It has an elliptical orbit, and sometimes its orbit comes inside that of Neptune. So if you were born from the 1930s to about the 1970s, 80s, you will start seeing things happen in the order of Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. But what I'm seeing now is those who are born from the early 80s, so we're talking about our millennials, they're having Pluto and Neptune transits smack bang right at the same time. So they're pretty much being hit by a freight train. And then they get a break, and then they'll see the Uranus opposition. Those that are born now are going to see it in their 60s. So that's a whole different thing. I'm really curious how that's going to pan out, because like my kids, they won't see it till their 60s, and they'll have their Saturn return at the time. So for those of us that are, Generation X, probably have just passed it, but millennials, they're right in the smack bang of that. But as we go along, we have, it's not done. We've got the nodes. As we said, we had the nodes coming to the return of their natal position at 38. They take 18 years, 9 years later, so you're about 47, you're going to get the inversion, the opposite. It's a bit of a check-in at that point. You also get a Jupiter return when you're 48. That's a burst of, Jupiter's a happy planet. It amplifies things. It amplifies the good things. It gets rid of things that you're not supposed to have in your life anymore, but it really, because it amplifies things, it really kick them out. And then going forward, you've got Saturn making transits. You have your secondary progressed lunar return, your Chiron return, Uranus and Neptune make some minor transits there. And then you have your moon's nodes. You have another lunar, a nodal return, and then your Saturn return from 57 to 60. So just when you think you're done up to 45, you've got more work to do. And it really pretty much sets us up for the rest of our lives. And it clears away a lot of crap. It's like, look, the stuff that you were doing when you were 20, it's not going to cut it when you're not, 70 or 60. You're preparing yourself for the rest of your life, how you want the rest of your incarnation to pan out. What, do you need to do while you're still here? So the lessons keep going. They're not as extreme. I would say the midlife ones are the ones that hit us the most until our 80s. But yeah, we've got quite a lot there to unpack, I'd say.
As we were saying in the last episode, the effects physiologically that you're feeling as you're entering that transition. So you'll start to maybe experience the day sweats or the night sweats and the change in your sleeping pattern. And you may find that you're a little bit more, I won't use the word moody, but less tolerant. And as Jane was describing it, it's because our progesterone is actually a sedative. And as our progesterone begins to diminish as we come into those early midlife years, that sedative that it has allowed us to have more hormonal tolerance of people, places, and things is now wearing off. So that natural thing that's allowed us to be able to manage things isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And that whole process is actually mimicking the energy that we're living under.
Yes.
With that natal energy that we've brought in. So if we just quickly go back to that 38-year group, for each of those transits, can you give the listeners a quick example of what that energy may have them experiencing?
Yeah. So we'll start with Pluto. So we said, like, with the nodes, you get the karma coming back. There's those karmic lessons, those things you're forced out of your comfort zone pretty much. And I'll give you a personal example. That's when my father passed away, when I had my second nodal return. And it was like, and I remember when he passed away, I thought, oh, I'm next. Seriously, in the patriarchal line, I'm next. And I'm an orphan, even though I'm a grown-ass adult, you know? Yeah, you're an orphan. And it's like, I'm not equipped. I can't, but I am. And actually it was, and I always say this to people who've lost their father, the doctor that was on that shift, because my father had a stroke in the emergency room and he passed away. And the doctor said, I'm going to tell you something someone told me when my dad passed away. Fathers don't leave unless they've equipped you with everything you need in life to survive. That's when they go. Oh, I'm going to get the tissues out now.
I know. I just thought about my dad passing. I was probably approaching 50 when I lost my dad.
So your Chiron return.
My Chiron return.
Oh my gosh, chills. And it's true. And especially I'd say for women, because if we have a good father figure in our lives, and that father figure, they don't have to be male, right? But someone that's a rock in our lives as we're growing up, whoever that is, when they die, it's like, oh my God, where's my safety net? You know, and you think you're not equipped, but they don't go until they know spiritually they've done what they need to do to equip you. Like if if you've got children, if you're mentoring, fostering, if you've got someone that's in a younger generation that you're mentoring in some capacity, you can see if they're ready or not, and that you've got work to do to help them out. So it's that sort of thing. So for me, that nodal return was like, oh no, you're ready. You're going out of your comfort zone. You have to provide. And I was already providing for myself anyway, but I didn't energetically. I had that dependence. So it doesn't necessarily mean someone's going to die when, that nodal return comes around. That's just how it manifested for me. But something can happen, or it's a realization, a karmic realization, and you might be like, is this it? Really? You want to do the things that you haven't been brave enough to do. And then Pluto comes along and does the Pluto square Pluto. Now, Pluto is traditionally Hades. He's the god of the underworld, the devil, so to speak, if you put like modern religion into it. He shows us what do we need in our lives to transform, because what we've been doing up to that date is not sustainable. And that's why you'll see people going out buying Ferraris or whatever, they're trying to catch up. They're trying to
the classic midlife crisis.
Yeah. They're like, why can't I do it now? And they do it, right? But it will hit you that you do have to change. You might have a dark night of the soul. You might have to go into that cocoon to become out as a butterfly. The key thing with this one is don't resist the change. The more you resist, the harder it will be, and just take one day at a time. That's all you can do with that one. Because when Neptune comes along, that's when the rose-colored glasses come off and you see
Mm.
people and things and situations in life for what they truly are. Sometimes we see people fall away from our lives.
Mm.
You know, they've taught us the lessons we need to learn. We've taught them the lessons they need to learn. And you do feel different. You do feel different with the Neptune square Neptune. Also depends where your natal Neptune is and where the transiting Neptune is as well. And once that goes, the Uranus opposition, as I said, is like that final electric buzz that's like, okay, well, you've come out of your cocoon, you see what you're meant to be doing. Are you doing it? And you know how some people go through their midlife crisis and they're like, why on earth? And people are like, why are they doing that? That's so unlike them. No, it's not. That's been living inside and that's their actual truth. Let them do
Mm.
it, right? And you need to listen to Uranus. And it's not just like, you know, you get these planets making the aspect, the square or the opposition, and that's it. Oh, no. They go retrograde. They go backwards and forwards, and they hit you 3 times over a 2-year period for roughly each one. So you're looking at a good, 6, 7 years of transformation there. And you look back, I've had clients come in at the start of their midlife transits and they looked horrible. They look tired. They look like, you know, something's weighing on them and they don't understand what's going on. And I felt like that. And it was the
Mm.
start of perimenopause for me. After I had my second child, I was like, what is going on? You know? But once you pass those midlife transits and it's before you get to your Saturn opposition, I've seen clients come back and they look amazing because they're liberated themselves. They're living their truth. Sure, they're still discovering what's going on, but yeah, I hope that makes sense. That's pretty much the gist of the energies. It depends on, where your natal planets are and where they've transited to. But yeah, it's a big time of transformation, but the more you resist it, the harder it is.
And it is incredibly interesting. And I know even with the knowledge I have, if I sit back and think about that time for me as you're speaking, and I'm sure people that are listening will be going, what was I doing at 38, 40? Well, that energy was happening for me because I fell pregnant with my third child and I had him at 37.
Yeah.
So I would have just been starting to come into those planetary transits.
Right.
He was 2. So that means I would have been 38, 39 when I lost my dad. And I do agree that spiritually, because he was my first spiritual mentor, because he was the person who introduced me to spirituality when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So he probably, as you said, would know that by that stage I would have come into my own and be able to support myself. But it also was a time where we were moving into the house we built.
Right.
And we moved from Sydney to the coast, which was a big thing with 2 other children. And so we built the house, we moved into the house. My mum and dad sold the house that they had that we grew up in and they moved to the country.
That's huge.
That all happened in sort of that 2-year phase. And then we lost dad. And then there was the transitioning of mum through that process and bringing mum back to us closer. When you think about it now in hindsight, and also think about what you've just said about this is what the energy brings for you.
Yeah.
You see it play out. And I think the important thing is to understand that none of it's meant to be scary or uncomfortable.
No.
It's only uncomfortable when you're pushing against what the energy wants you to do.
That's right.
And I've said this in so many interviews and articles and podcasts that comfort meter that you have is the thing that should be guiding you. That's your internal little voice going, this isn't working. You need to let it go. So if you're approaching that 38, 40, 42 year mark and you're starting to feel that stuff happening, go with it. Don't fight it.
Absolutely. No,
If you
go with it. Yeah.
If you suddenly have to go, this job's not working for me anymore, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Get rid of
Exactly.
it and move into something. I mean, I went from being someone who had historically had an administration background in a variety of crazy jobs into doing family daycare for 6 years so that I could be home with my children. And now in hindsight, that was the job that actually moved me towards all of my learning and development years.
Wow.
Where I even am right now. So
yeah,
I think for people who are in that early phase and that's the listeners like, oh, I'm 38, I'm 39. Like look at what you're doing. And if
Exactly.
you feel like you need to pivot, pivot. Just trust the energy, because the energy will always support you. That's why you came in with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And and at the time I remember listening to podcasts that were career based, to do with business in the corporate world. And they were talking about that midlife transition. They had doctors on and they were talking on like exactly what Jane was talking about. But they were like, oh, it's, they were very scientific about it and they were correct. But I was like, there's got to be something else. And you can see, it's not just the science. It's not just how we're thinking, we're in life, it's the astrology, everything works together. Everything's supporting that time. And yeah, if it doesn't work for you, you don't have to do it just because other people say it, you know? That's the other thing, that there's the cultural aspect. It's like, oh, what will people think of me? What will my family think of me as well? And there's that hard thing. And you probably look at the fourth house, or there might be something there to work with, a generational thing as well. There's so many things that come into play that make it seem more difficult, but that's a key thing. Work with the energy, take one day at a time. Listen to yourself.
And I know when I'm working with people, it's very much around recognizing that these transitional phases, and it's happened from like day one. It happens when you go from childhood to puberty, from puberty to adolescence, from adolescence to young adulthood. Then you have your child, so then it's womanhood, and now you're moving into that phase which Jane calls sagescence, which if you go with the pagan, it's beautiful, isn't it? Or the pagans will call it, wise woman or crone.
Yeah.
Every culture has its own term. We're moving into that phase, and it's happening for us to allow us to stop and reset, because we've hit 40.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, women are living to 90 and 100.
That's right.
So you've still got a whole lot of living to do, and you want to do it from a place of joy and satisfaction and ease and grace. So when you're experiencing, and when we think about the 38-year nodal return, your south node is where you are comfortable.
Yes.
And it's where your repeating patterns occur. And you know what? Comfortable doesn't mean happy. Comfortable means I'm in this situation, but I don't want to move because I'm too scared. It's too hard. What will I do? It could be a relationship. It could be a workplace. It could be any context you want to put around it. Yeah. But if you're in that age group and you're feeling that restlessness, and you are in a situation, regardless of what the context is, that doesn't work anymore, it's not enjoyable anymore, it's causing you pain, grief, anger, frustration, sleeplessness, fatigue, it's time to reassess, because that's what the energies and your physiological symptoms are asking you to do. They're going, this is your chance to stop and reflect and embrace with gratitude everything that brought you to here. But now you're not moving towards your north node, which is the thing you wanted to accomplish in this experience.
Yeah.
This energy is trying to tell you haven't moved, you need to move.
Yes. Absolutely. We have to listen to our bodies. I think that's one thing we're not doing. We're not honoring our cycles. Like if you know anything about your astrological chart, if you're astrologically across it, or au fait, or you could, start learning about it, look where the moon is falling in your chart by transit. It moves pretty fast. If it's in the 12th house and it'll stay in there in your 12th house for 2 or 3 days, rest. Don't start anything. If the moon is void, when it's not making any interactions with anything in the chart, I find either it's because of my intuition, I'm just like, oh, the moon must be void. And I check, the charts, the ephemeris. I'm like, yep, it's void. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to rest because nothing's going to happen. If I get an invitation to something and my body just goes, no, don't go. We've got FOMO, right? What about JOMO, joy of missing out? I know it sounds horrible, but we get to the stage like in our 40s, we cannot keep up. Our bodies need more rest. And, and sometimes I say to myself, I'll say to my mum, she's in her 80s. She just went through that 80s big, midlife, but end of life transits. But, you know, I said to her, if I'm in my 40s and I say I'm too old for this and I need to rest, what do you say? And she goes, honey, opening my eyelids and I need a rest. Right?
Oh.
On a Sagittarius. But we've really got to honor our bodies, our
Mm,
cycles, and listen to our bodies. You know, you might get a job offer that looks too good to be true, but it takes you away from your family.
mm,
You know, what are you going to choose? Listen to what your
mm.
body is telling you. Yeah.
And
And
I think what where we don't make the choices in line with what our initial intuitive feelings are, and whether you
yeah,
get that as a gut feeling or just a kind of a sensation somewhere in your body, the expectations that are put on women then overshadow that. So, for example, the analogy you just used, you get offered this amazing job, which is maybe not close to home, or it needs you
yeah,
to travel. And every bit of you is going, oh my God, this would be amazing. It's what I've always wanted to do. Oh, but who's going to look after the kids? You
yeah,
know what? You go with the intuition, you go with the joy, and you go with the job,
yeah,
because things will then fall into place around, what am I going to do with the kids? People suddenly, offers of help will happen. You
yeah,
will be shown childcare options or after school options, or, you know, when you move with your intuition, which is your
yes,
higher self talking to you,
yeah.
and do what it wants, everything else will just happen and fall into place.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're
And
meant to go down that path, it will come.
it's having
Absolutely.
that trust
Yeah.
to empower yourself and not lose yourself under those expectations, and then say no to the opportunity, and then resent that for the next 5 or 10 years, which is not going to
Yes.
work for you at all. And
No, and no, not at all. And the kids will pick that up from you
that's
and
right.
then say you weren't a good parent. It's like, but I stayed home for you. Yeah,
That's it. And
but
so what if you
yeah,
take the job that sounds amazing? Do it for 6 months. If it falls over, look for something else, but at least you won't have regret.
exactly.
Mm,
Exactly. And you've gone into your
mm.
comfort zone and you never know what's going to open up after that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I can't say to women enough, and I say this from a lived experience
Mm.
of learning to trust everything and just go with it, no matter how crazy it sounds.
Yeah,
When you just go with it and test it and have a go, everything you need will just fall into place.
exactly. The
Mm.
universe provides,
It does.
always provides. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. So we've covered the major planets that are playing um, with us in that 38, 40 to 50 sort of phase.
Yeah.
As we move into 50, which for me was sort of like that, it was almost like I turned 50. That's when I noticed it all happening. I started to see the symptoms. The few symptoms that I got, I was extremely fortunate. But I did start to notice, oh, I'm getting night sweats. Oh, I got the restless leg really bad. That was probably the thing that drove me crazy the worst.
Right.
But I started to see that as soon as I turned 50.
Okay.
And it was also when I started to be saying to myself, I don't want to do this relationship anymore. Um,
Oh,
for me, my work was always great. I've always been fortunate that I've always had really good workplace situations, but for me, it was the
yeah.
relationship. And I think I got to 50, which is kind of like coming into my sage essence, and just went, I'm not doing this anymore. I just don't want to do this anymore. And I was fortunate enough that I had an extremely good mentor who was working with me,
Mm.
who led me through it and said, this is what's happening. You need to be honest with yourself. You need to be authentic. And I did find that once I embraced that
Yeah.
and also came back into my spiritual practice and started to actually really pay attention, everything did just fall into place. But that Chiron return at
Yeah.
50 was the energy that gave me the little kick to move. So what does that Chiron return feel like? And the Saturn return is kind of coming around then too somewhere, isn't it?
It's coming for it at 59. So you're
Yeah.
looking at a few years later.
So you're leading up to the Saturn.
Yeah. So after those, major outer planet transits, you will have your Saturn opposition about 5 years earlier before Chiron. Now, Chiron, Saturn, and Uranus are very closely related, especially in mythology. Saturn is Chiron's father. And Chiron was rejected from a very young age. So I need to go a bit to the mythology to sort of give more nuance to what Chiron is about. And he is the wounded healer. So he was rejected from a young age, and we can carry a lot of our parental or our wounds from childhood with Chiron. And he was taken under the wing by the sun and the moon, the gods of the sun and the moon. And he grew up, and Hercules shot him with a poisoned arrow. There was no cure, right? So he still carried on with this poison in his body and healed everyone. And that symbolism shows us, Chiron shows us where we have this soul wound or something that's happened to us early in life. And since Chiron takes about 50 years to go around our chart, once we come to our Chiron return, there's that wound. You can't ignore it. Saturn a few years earlier, because we have our first Saturn return when we're 27 to 29. So that's when 27-year-olds are going, what is going on, right? Everywhere, they're growing up. Saturn's that teacher, that strict teacher. And when we come to our Saturn opposition, because it takes about 29 years, so when we're at about 44 to 45, he's opposite. He's already done one revolution, and now he's got another half around. And he's just checking in, going, so, and depending where your natal Saturn is and where transiting Saturn is, what are you doing with your life? Have you done what you were supposed to do from when I first visited it when you were 27 and 29? And it does feel like a smack in the face or in the back of the head, because you're like, oh, what am I doing? You know? And it's a different insight to what you had before. It's a more mature insight. And I find the more you don't resist what those lessons are, or that check-in going, you should be doing this, the easier it is. So when he comes back in your second Saturn return later on, you can deal with it better there. So that father comes around, and then the wound comes up when you're in your 50s. Whatever your soul wound is, depending on where Chiron is in your chart, what sign, that's where you will feel it, you know? And that's what you were saying, you were coming up to, you know, getting into that, you were having those hints, but it's not until your Chiron return that you feel that change. And like I'm coming up to my Chiron return, and I'm like, woo, this one's going to be a doozy. It's in the 12th house for me. So I'm really interested to see how it's going to pan out. Yeah.
And as we were just saying too, like when I look back at it in hindsight, which is why it's so important to be saying to people, don't wait for hindsight. Start looking into it now.
Yes.
As my Chiron return came in, and because I have that Chiron in Pisces, which is all around discovering the spiritualism that you want to be living with, I think it was so important for me to recognize that and move that the person who I needed to listen to was put in front of me. And Tracy, because she's a person we both know, and she happened to be my mentor, she's a psychic medium. And I think it's because spiritually, spirit knew that I wasn't going to listen to a counselor. I wasn't going to listen to a girlfriend. I wasn't even going to listen to my inner self. But you put a wooey person in front of me, which is the stuff I love, and I'm going to go and see her, and I'm going to go listen to what she's got to say. And they knew that would grab me. And they knew, and I think that they knew that that would be the thing that I would listen to. And of course, that was the person who said, this is what I'm getting. You need to pivot. And I listened to her because I had always trusted that. I never doubted anything that came from an authentic quality medium or tarot reader, because I had grown up with that. So I think it's really important to look at the signs that you're receiving. Who is suddenly drifting into your peripheral from nowhere, where you're going, wow, I can't believe that person's just arrived. And you might have one of those 6 degrees of separation type experiences where you're like, wow, you know, I can't believe that I didn't meet you earlier. They're here for a reason. What are they bringing to you? Where are they from? What do they talk about? What's their background? Because that's the universe going, here's what you need, and you have to recognize it. So it's really important that when you know you're in that energetic phase to be going, what's happening? Who suddenly is in front of me? Who am I reading? Who am I listening to? What articles are appearing in front of me? Because that's your indication of where you need to go.
Absolutely. And hearing phrases within a space of a week from 3 different people, which I've had recently, that's the universe really saying, listen to this.
Not
Follow
everything's
this.
11:11. Sometimes it's the same message you're seeing and hearing and reading in a short space of time. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, those signs of, and speaking with Tracy, when I had a reading with her, it was quite funny. It was Mercury retrograde, and we just would never, like, would be on Zoom and I'd be waiting for her and everything. I'm like, why is it this? Why I really need a reading? And that when we finally, like how we're talking now, she said, "You do realize when two woo-woo people get together, technology goes to crap, right?" I was like, I had no idea. But the
Yeah,
thing,
every time.
yeah. And the things that she was mentioning, it was everything that I'd heard before, but I just wasn't listening, you know? And sometimes, yeah, you do need to hear it through someone, either through your astrology, through a medium, through a friend, total stranger. When you hear it from a total stranger, listen. I'm not talking about road rage and they call you something, right? But like I've had instances where, actually, I'll tell you about one. I took my son to the park after school and there was this guy just sitting there. He seemed like, you know how some people say, oh, there's just something right up in the top paddock, you know? But I think there was something very right in the top paddock. He was very intuitive and misunderstood. And he said, we just started a conversation. And then he said to me, you've been wronged. Yeah, certain things have happened in the past. Don't get revenge. And when revenge happens, don't laugh because that's your karma. He goes, things are going to come back to them. Let the universe take care of it. You just continue doing what you're doing. And I'm like, how does this guy even, he never said any specifics or anything like that, just something that I actually needed to hear. Because you know how sometimes you might go through a trauma, it comes back and festers a little bit. And then he got up, he went on, and then I looked back and he was gone. And I'm like, that guy was real. I mean, he disappeared really fast. But it was like sometimes you hear things from the universe you really need to hear. And it comes again and again. And especially during this midlife, if you're not going to listen, if you're not going to follow and take it one day at a time and listen to your intuition and what your body's saying, what, you know, whoever you've gone to see, the universe will make it happen. It will point you in eclipses. Eclipses are really great for that, pointing you in the right direction. Yeah.
And I also think too, the noise of it will get louder. So when you're not hearing that message,
Yeah.
you will keep seeing that same kind of language in a meme on a Facebook or the same kind of story in a post, or you'll keep hearing about a particular book that you might have gone, oh, that sounds interesting, but it keeps coming at you again.
Yeah.
You know, I say the noise gets louder when you're not paying attention, and the noise doesn't have to be bad noise. It can be good noise.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and this is independent of clicking on something and the algorithm feeding it back to you. Yeah. So you might just look at it, not click on it, but look at it, just keep going, and then, you know, it keeps coming up later on. You okay?
Having a bit of a cough. Just had to mute there.
It's all good.
Yeah, and it could be because I'm speaking someone's truth and I'm getting a cough. So if anyone's out there listening and that
Yes, it's from the French
meant for them, that's why I'm getting the tickle. So yeah, really, really important that when you're feeling this energy, that you're listening to yourself and you're listening to the external stuff that's coming to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we have the node and then we have Chiron, and then as we're moving through Chiron, and recognizing those wounds that are coming back again, going, what are you going to do about it? And again, it's pushing you into your North Node because you're sitting in your comfort zone, which is not serving you.
Yes.
Then, and we're probably also right in the throes of menopause. So you have all of those symptoms happening as well. Then as we start to hopefully be coming out of that, we're then getting towards the Saturn return.
Yes. So that's, yeah. And, you know, it's a lot of the things that come up. I mean, hormonally, as Jane said, you know, the progesterone goes down and we just don't have the tolerance. We just don't have, we can't put up with that. We're too old for it. I always say, we're just too old for that stuff, and we have to be authentic with ourselves. And, and when your second Saturn return comes around, it will look at how authentic are you being with your life. It's the third signpost. It goes into that sageness, into being the matriarch. And I've been seeing a lot of things come up saying why, like we're living, as you said, longer than other generations did. 40-year-olds were considered old ladies over 100 years ago. 40-year-olds now are like 20-year-olds, and we're keeping our youth in because we're doing the things that we love that keep us young. And so as we're getting older, sure, we're living older, we're young in our souls and doing what we love, but our bodies are getting older as well. And even though outside women we look fabulous, inside something else is happening. And we're like, okay, so I'm going to hit 60. At the most, I have 40 years. Let's say we go to 120, I have another 60 years, right? You don't know how genetics, how environment is going to pan out. What am I going to do with my life to be in my best version possible for myself and set myself up till I die, pretty much? So there's, you've got that second Saturn return that's happening, but you also have Jupiter returning for the 5th time when you're 60 years old. That'll last for about a year. So
this is me. This is me now.
Yeah. And a Jupiter return is really good. It's like a little burst of luck, I find, and things just clear up, but in a bigger way. But things will fall away. You've also got, whatever lunation phase you had when you were born, your progressed moon and sun, that relationship comes back again, right? So you're really setting yourself up for the rest of your life. And don't ignore the signs. Just don't. It's not, you really need to listen to what's happening there. And I should take my own advice, have that in preparation when I get there. But really, yeah, it's a lot of harsh lessons, but they're what you really needed to hear and you probably were hearing but ignoring.
If this is resonating with you and you're sitting here going, wow, everything over these last few episodes is like, that's me and I'm feeling that and I'm hearing that. And I had a little bit of a goosebump when that was said. And I wonder if this is me. I would definitely be saying, reach out to Georgina if you want a natal chart reading so that you understand what your blueprint looks like. And even if you're only getting your head around your sun, your moon, your rising, and your major planets of influence at this point is better than not knowing it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think you can do anything wrong in arming yourself with this information and going, well, this is where I am now. What is my energy? And how do I work with it so I flow better?
Yeah.
And it's 20 years.
It's a long time.
Just this little bit of energy that we're talking about is a 20-year period. And it's happening right at the time where 80% of us are mothers of children somewhere, well, in this day and age, anywhere from 6 weeks to 18, really.
Yeah.
Because we're having children so much later. So we're mothers. We're also probably working mothers or business women.
Yes.
We're daughters and often of aging parents. So now we're also possibly carers. So we're carrying so much stuff, as well as having all of this happening to us physiologically and energetically that we haven't thought about, because the energetic part is the part that most people don't even know is going on.
Yeah, that's right.
So I would definitely say it is worth your while to reach out to someone, get that initial reading, understand what the blueprint looks like so you can just take stock and just stop for a moment and go, okay, let's just assume this is correct. And you'll be blown away by it. So it's a bit hard to go, it's not correct.
Yeah.
And just work with it.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. Yeah.
I will put all of Georgina's details into the show notes. So where you can contact her website link and all the rest of it so that you can reach out to her if you would like. Definitely subscribe to Georgina's email because she sends out information around astrological happenings once or twice a month. So you're getting that information in written form anyway. Yeah. And we're actually going to do some more episodes. So after this one, we're actually going to talk about, I think Progressed Moon is the next really important one that we need to enlighten everybody around.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. We will be having another episode on our Progressed Moon, which will also blow you out of the water. So thank you so much for your time today. It's always so much fun catching up with you.
Thank you.
It's been so much information that people can take away from this. And
I hope so.
Yeah. And if anyone has any questions, you can either just email Georgina directly or email me, get in contact with me and I can pass them on. Or when you're listening to this, put some comments in podcast notes and we can address those. And if there's anything that you would like to know more about, definitely put that in the comments because we can include that in future episodes as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we can definitely do that. And as always, if you have enjoyed listening to my podcast, follow, like, share it with anybody else that you think might enjoy this information. Look after yourselves, protect your energy, and you will be hearing more from myself and Georgina about all of this in some upcoming episodes.
Talk to you soon. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.